The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It is Wednesday. We're so thrilled on Wednesday because our first segment is with Dr. Doreen Grampichet. It's called Ask Dr. Doreen, and you get to ask her questions in real time. If you are interested in participating in that, you want to go to www.autism-live.com. You'll see a white box there. You want to put your cursor there, type your question or your suggestion or your topic that you're interested in hearing about, hit enter, and it will appear here on my screen, and I can ask Dr. Grampichet in real time. There is no cost for that. You don't have to log in. No one will have your personal information. No one is asking for a credit card number. You simply have to ask your question. By the way, there are a lot of other ways that you can interact with us, and Emily's going to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us here. And I'll remind you that in the second hour, we will have Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson joining me for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. That's a very exciting hour where we'll cover a lot of news topics, and we have a wonderful guest that's going to be talking with us about using animals as a reinforcer for children. That's a very exciting new method. So we'll be thrilled to share that. But right now, we are going to start our lovely segment, Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Grampichet is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grampichet.
Dr. Grampichet.
Dr. Doreen Grampichet.
Dr. Doreen Grampichet is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We welcome Dr. Doreen Grampichet to the program. Good morning. So thrilled to have you here this morning.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
This is such a great opportunity for our viewers at home to be able to have access to your wonderful, beautiful brain and ask you questions. You are a true expert in the field of autism.
Thank you very much, Shannon.
And you're a visionary in the field of autism. So I want to remind everybody right from the beginning, though, that no one on the show will be attempting to give child-specific advice, including Dr. Grampichet. There's a very good reason for that. Our kids are all individuals. We're always fighting and saying that we're individuals and our kids are individuals, and asking for people to look at ourselves and our kids that way. So Dr. Grampichet will be doing that. She will, listen to your questions and give you some suggestions of directions you might want to go, but there's no way you could give her enough information in this format for her to give child-specific advice.
That's right. Yeah, we'll be very careful with that. We don't want to misguide anyone.
Right. But if you are interested in getting child-specific advice from Dr. Doreen Grampichet, she is still practicing here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and we'll make sure to give you information about how you could make that happen. Some of our viewers have actually done that.
Yeah, in fact, I think I've already seen 2 families that started just asking questions on Autism Live, and I think I actually even have another one coming in.
It's wonderful. So do know that that is a possibility, a very exciting possibility. But in the meantime, we have such a plethora of questions that have built up. We want to get to as many as possible. Okay, so somebody wrote in and said, it's their first time here. My son, who is 2, has had the diagnosis for about 4 months, which I love to hear when families are getting these early diagnoses. Lately, I have been very distressed. My son ran into the street and he almost always doesn't recognize danger. I was wondering, is this aspect of not recognizing danger going to be something to worry about for the rest of his life? He has a diagnosis of PDD-NOS.
No, it's not. It's definitely not going to be something you're going to worry about forever. Danger is actually, watching out for danger, or what we call safety lessons, is very, very easy to do. It's, if you go back, actually, Shannon, interesting, like the very, very beginning of kind of an area of psychology that influenced us very much. We always talk about how all of our work in ABA goes back to Skinner, and before Skinner goes back to Thorndike, who came up with the whole concept of operant conditioning. But also there was another psychologist called Watson, and his whole idea was about conditioning and how you can change. His theory was that he used to say that I could take any child and turn them into anything. I could, if you give me a child from the time they're born, I can make sure that child becomes either a murderer or a philosopher, scientist, whatever. Wow. And one of the experiments that he had done was that he had this little boy, and he showed that we're not born with fear. We don't know fear. The only reason we learn fear is from observing our parents or people who protect us, or from getting hurt. So for instance, you won't touch fire because you may touch it and it'll burn you, or because every time you go near the stove, your parents will scream and say, oh, don't do that, don't do that. And kids are so in tune to the emotions of their parents that they immediately experience, this is kind of almost like a form of joint attention, right? So if you see your mom experiencing fear without even knowing what it's about, you will have the same feeling. You'll start to fear, and then you'll figure out what it is, right? But our kids on the spectrum, aren't that in tuned to their parents' emotions. So as a result, they're not aware of things like when, how does a child learn to cross the street safely? It's because mom will always say, and which one of us hasn't at one point or another, you'll grab your child's hand really hard. You'll tell them, be careful, watch out, no, always hold my hand. Those types of things are things that give our kids the idea that this is a fear-evoking experience, and I need to be afraid, and being afraid is a signal of safety, right? So I'm cautious, okay? Our kids don't do that. They just walk through because they don't pay attention to us. Right. But teaching fear. So this is what Watson used to do, is he'd have a little child sitting there, a little 1 or 2 year old, and he would be able to, by any object, like for instance a cute little bunny rabbit, which the child loved, by making a very loud sound behind the child when the bunny rabbit came around, then the child would associate that sudden startle to the bunny rabbit, and then would develop fear to the bunny rabbit. Interesting. So one of his main contributions was that you condition fear, right, by attaching it to things that startle us or hurt us, or just evoke fear on their own, unconditioned stimuli. So to answer this question, all you have to do really is find something that does startle your child. Most of the time that'll be a loud sound. Okay. Like for instance, I hate to tell you this, but this is essentially how you do it, especially for something as dangerous as crossing the street. Right. These little things they have that you press and it sounds like a really loud horn. An air horn. Air horn, right. Like that would be a good thing. So the minute he puts his foot down on the curb, or is about to cross or get in front of a car or something like that, then you would press the air horn. That will scare him, but and then he won't do it anymore. But you have to be sure that he is able to overcome that fear by holding your hand or something like that. I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing this unless. And especially not at 2. I really wouldn't recommend doing this at 2. But it is something that an ABA professional can easily teach your child when he's, let's say, closer to maybe 6, 7. Because at 2, we don't expect our kids to know how to cross the street anyway. We don't at 4 anyway. You're always holding your child's hand at least until they're 5 or 6 or even older. Depending on how protective you are. So I would not really worry about this right now, to be honest, but I do want to assure you that safety can be taught to your child. In fact, one of our staff is really involved with safety
Yes.
way beyond this. This is an easy safety issue, but like he teaches our kids stranger safety,
Yes.
which is a little bit harder to teach.
My son participated in some of
stranger
the safety
safety.
protocol things, and it was amazing to see all the different steps of getting him to the point where they did a trial, and somebody approached him. We had it all set up, and there were people watching. I was at home because they knew I couldn't survive it.
Right.
But my husband was there, and they had 3 different therapists watching, so that my husband walked away from my son in a store, and a person who was assigned to be the stranger walked up and tried to
Confederate stranger.
Yes, and tried to get him to go with him, and he passed the test.
That's great.
And, absolutely amazing, and because it took many steps to build up to that. But I imagine, and hearing about, I think, hopefully it will help you to not be afraid that this isn't going to be the rest of your life.
Not at all.
But at this age, at 2, you're going to have to be incredibly on it. And it is amazing to me the different things that autism parents talk about while they begin to work on safety, the measures that they take to ensure that their child is safe while it's being worked on.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, when you talk about, this is one, crossing the street, but I mean, just eloping anywhere. Like, one of the biggest issues for our parents is that the kids don't feel unsafe without them. So they just take off, like in the mall or anywhere public, they'll take off, and that's a big one. Or chemicals in the house, or all sorts of stuff that we normally worry about, but it does go on a little bit. It's a little bit more intense with kids on the spectrum because they're not paying attention to other people's reactions.
Absolutely. So keeping your child safe but as they progress, and you will be able to teach this.
No question about it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Another question: what age can a child be recovered?
Oh, that's a great question. I can tell you from personal experience, I guess the youngest that I would have recovered would be somewhere around probably 5. And the oldest would be closer to like 12 when I finished.
And so the age at which you started, though, with the 5-year-old,
right, was 2, and with the other boy who went older was 5.
Okay.
So in other words, typically what we believe is that the chances are the highest for kids when they start at around 2 or below 2. I mean, on Thursday I'm seeing a child who's below 2, and I'm like, I'm loving it. I love it whenever I see young kids.
I get so excited when I hear that.
Yeah, I see a lot of kids below 2, but this is actually a second opinion, which is unusual, that I would be the second,
Right.
It's great. But, and so usually that's the case. Our kids are usually the ones that start very, very early, do the best. But I mean, I have had plenty of kids actually who've started closer to 5.
Okay.
And have done very, very well as well.
Okay. Really exciting. And of course, if you're just tuning into the show and have not heard the term recovered in conjunction with autism, I know it's a controversial term. Some people have a problem saying the word recovered and want to say indistinguishable from neurotypical peers. But would you be willing to give us your brief description of what you deem recovered?
Sure. And there's a lot of different reasons people feel this is controversial. I don't want to get stuck in that. I try to ignore that because I've been saying this for God knows how long, and it's still a controversial term. The way that I define recovery, or we define recovery here at CARD, is first of all, according to our assessments, which are basically skill-based assessments, the child is functioning normally meaning by age level, his own chronological age, in all areas. So areas of functioning, like anywhere from language to cognition, executive functioning, social, play, etc., etc. Then we have our kids tested for intelligence, IQ testing, and that has to be normal. And then we also have our kids tested on adaptive skills, the Vineland, which is a great test. Adaptive functioning has to be normal. And we do some additional tests, for instance, test of problem solving, some neuropsych tests where we want to make sure our child's processing speed is normal, and their memory is good, and so on and so forth. So all of their standardized testing has to score normal. They don't fit the criteria for ASD, or any of the spectrum disorders now will be a little bit different. And also that they have friends, and they are functioning independently in regular education.
Okay. It's a thing that, happens for some of our kids, by no means all of them, but more and more of our kids. And people should know that that is a reality. That is not a unicorn.
It's not.
I myself have seen that can happen. And it can happen with a lot of our kids if we get them the right prescription, which is a certain amount of ABA.
Right. And sometimes it takes, some of our kids are just like immediate and sharp kids, like Ethan, who's been on several of our programs.
Yeah.
He's such a great kid and so obvious, just like, beyond normal. Like one of those kids who's going to be like the captain of the team, and he's just such a star, and I love that kid, just so mature.
Yes.
And children like that, it's sort of like, this is their language, and so it's so easy for them, and they pick up and they learn everything, and it just works out great. And other kids, they learn a massive amount in the first few years, and then they take a little bit longer to learn stuff from their environment, so it drags on.
Right.
For instance, you might start at 5, and I think with the other boy that I'm thinking about, 5, we were ongoing until about maybe 8 or 9 or 10 even, with pretty intensive therapeutic hours, and then after that it just became faded out gradually until about 12. So it dragged on for a while, and that was just because the support we provided was less and less and less, and but in the end everything was done.
Right. All of our kids are different, and it takes different things for different individuals, but recovery can happen. It does happen. We are going to take a short break and come back with more of your questions for Dr. Doreen Grandpichet. Stick with us.
For the month of September, I figured I'd show you guys how to make a task completion chart to help your kids get through the hardest parts of the day. Parents have been writing into our host, Shannon Penrod, the hardest parts of the day are waking up in the morning, after school, and getting ready for bed. Please keep in mind you can always modify the task completion chart to focus on the skills that your family needs most. The template we'll be using today to make the task completion chart you can find at facebook.com/autism-live. All right, let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are the template, cardstock, scissors, hole puncher, glue, pipe cleaner, Velcro, and photos or images. We find it more reinforcing for kids if you use images of themselves doing the task that you're trying to get them to complete. So what I have here to start off are photos of myself doing all the tasks that we're going to add to our task completion chart today. The first step you're going to be doing is printing the template from facebook.com/autism-live. I have it here, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim at the top. We don't need that, that's just totally excess. Now that I trim my 3 templates, I'm going to label each one with a different part of the day that we're focusing on, such as waking up, after school, and getting ready for bed. Now that I finished labeling the templates with the appropriate time of the day, I'm going to attach the photos that go with it. For bedtime, the tasks I chose were getting ready for school, putting away toys, putting on pajamas, and brushing teeth. Now repeat this for all the rest of the day. Now that I've added the photos to the template, I am taking this along with my heavy cardstock to hold all my tokens. I'm going to line them up and make 3 hole punches. I'm going to take this pipe cleaner and attach the pages together with it. We're almost done putting this together. Next, I'm going to take my Velcro. I'm going to put them underneath each picture. And then I'm going to add 4 on the very edge too. Now that I've attached the rough side of the Velcro to the template, now I'm going to take the softer side and add these to the tokens. You can use whatever you want for the tokens, whatever your child finds reinforcing. They could be stickers, images, spacemen, Pokemon, whatever they like. Before you use your task completion chart, it's really important that you do a preference assessment to see what your child finds reinforcing that day. Once you have that established, then you can tell them the rule for how this task completion chart works. So every time they get one of their tasks completed, they add a token to it. And the way the task completion chart functions is like a token economy. So after they put a token under each one of these tasks, they can trade it in for their reinforcer for the day. Now that you've made your task completion chart, hopefully your child will be able to use it on a daily basis and help them through those difficult times of the day. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We have with us here in the studio Dr. Doreen Grandpichet. She is an expert in the field of autism. We're thrilled to have her here.
Thank you.
She's answering your questions that you're sending in. We have a question that's of a mature nature that we want Dr. Grandpichet to touch on, but we want to let you all know beforehand that it's of a mature nature, and if you have children in the room that you're concerned about, make sure that you move them to someplace else or lower the volume or just be forewarned. So a parent who has written in about their 15-year-old autistic son taking off his underwear and playing with himself, and apparently they're concerned about how do they get that to stop in general, but also in terms of, it appears that there's some frequent ejaculation that's happening in their room, and wanting to know how and if to stop that.
Right, right. And this actually is a pretty common issue for parents when the kids get older, because, and it's not really about, I mean, it is obviously, it becomes much more about embarrassment and what's appropriate socially and all this sort of stuff as we age, but it's more about, like, really not, it's a deficit in social understanding. It's sort of the individual never really becomes aware of the whole concept of embarrassment. We've talked about this a few times on the show before. And, you know, so it's a tough thing to deal with when you're dealing with someone who's 15, especially. That's probably one of the toughest ages, actually, to deal with this, because this is sort of around puberty, and boys are much more likely to be doing this at that age than younger or older. Older, it tends to go down as well.
It's actually kind of age appropriate, correct?
It's quite age appropriate, and you know, masturbation for boys can start as early as 2. And it's, you know, it's something, it's a reinforcer. I mean, you have to understand that, like, masturbation for a boy, especially because it's so much easier to do, and it's an external organ. It's much different with girls, but with a boy, you basically, it is a reinforcer, and it is what we would consider a primary reinforcer. That means it's as strong as food, let's say, you know. I mean, when you want to shape a new behavior or reinforce something new, you would use a primary reinforcer because it's much stronger than social praise or disapproval or anything like that. So it's a very strong reinforcer. It will the only thing that could potentially compete with it is food.
Right.
So therefore, first of all, it's going to be extremely difficult to eliminate, and secondly, it's going to be not necessarily something you want to eliminate, because it will produce a lot of, let's say, calming effects for the boy, and it will allow the child to start to have, like, some understanding of privacy and of being able to self-soothe, self-calm, and that sort of thing, which is fine. In fact, well, you know, sociologically, if you look at it, Shannon, one of the things that I always say is, like, in general, when you're looking at adults, men and women, men tend to maintain a lot of reinforcers in their universe, whereas women don't. Women's reinforcers change quite significantly. Like when you're a child, you might be playing with dolls or whatever it is, but as you age, your reinforcers become more things like, my children are okay, or I don't have guilt, or, you know, it's more negative reinforcers than actual positive reinforcers. And with men, it's a lot of toys still. It's like, okay, say, let's play soccer or golf or this or that, and that, they maintain games and toys, whereas women don't. And so men also tend to have just want or seek reinforcement more than women. And so I think this is a circumstance that's similar to that. Now, having said that, it's obviously not appropriate in public. And so one of the things that I would suggest to this parent is, first you should decide, and I highly suggest that you don't necessarily, this could be your personal beliefs, in which case it's just a little bit tougher and you would really need professional help, I think, if you wanted to stop this in all environments. What we usually do is we teach our kids very early on that this is something that can only be done in private, and we establish with the family a room or bathroom or whatever where this is appropriate and okay for it to occur.
Right.
So you would possibly want to find that location first of all, and perhaps you want to look at something like, for instance, which might be easier for your son, and therefore, and also more enjoyable and so on, would be, for instance, when he showers, which is, I think, more typical. And so if you want to do that, then it's something that's a little bit difficult, and if he's 15, I don't know that it would be a good idea for you as a mom to get too involved with this. I do suggest that you try to get a behaviorist. When we do these types of things, we always use our male behaviorists to teach the guys. And then it's just a matter of you can do this in this environment but not in another, and so then it's just a discrimination where you would interrupt and speak sternly for perhaps, or not allow him to do this in his own room or in other, you would just block it. So you would prevent him from taking down his underwear, you would prevent him from initiating, but you would make sure that he understands that all he has to do is stand up, go over and take a shower, and when it's shower time, then he can do this.
Right.
And another thing that some parents have done is, for instance, you would remove the doors off the bedroom or something. But in this case, it doesn't sound like it would be helpful, because he seems to not be really aware of what's going on around him, or that there are other people there. So really, I would just try to help him differentiate. One setting it's okay, another setting it's not okay, which means you allow it in one setting, and in the other settings you block it, you prevent it from happening.
Great advice.
And hopefully that will reduce his need enough that it's just not occurring in those settings that make you embarrassed.
Okay, great advice. We're going to take a short break and come back with more questions with Dr. Doreen Grandpichet. Stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity's status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live and Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grandpichet is here with us in the studio answering your questions live and in real time. We have a question that came in on the Facebook. How do you help a child who has panic when it rains and worse when it thunders? Living in tropical climate, storms are inevitable.
So this is it's actually an interesting one because my son used to really panic when it rained. And it's a fear that had developed because he was playing outside and somebody ran inside with him so he wouldn't get wet, and he thought, oh my God, I can never be in rain. Wow. Like, I'm going to melt or something. So any fear, the way to deal with fear, any fear, which panic is a type of fear, type of anxiety, is best dealt with through the process of systematic desensitization. Systematic desensitization is a process where it involves two different phases, actually three phases. So one phase is you take the thing that's evoking the fear, so for instance the thunderstorms or rain, and actually Mom or Dad, whoever wrote, actually lists two different things, I think, rain and thunderstorms. So rain appears to be less fear-evoking than thunderstorms for this child. So you'd write a list and you'd write 10 different steps. So the first one, which would be the least fear-evoking, would be perhaps, I don't know, a picture of rain. The second one would be perhaps the sound of rain. The third one might be, I don't know, a video of rain. Fourth one might be video of rain and thunderstorms. I don't know. You have to go from 1 to 10, 10 being the most fear-evoking, such as actually standing outside alone in the middle of a thunderstorm. Right. Okay, so that would be number 10, and then you start with 1. You could make it 20 if you wanted to. It's up to you. They're gradients. And then that's phase 1. You've done that list, and for your child, it should be so that your child can really understand it. Ideally, it should be visual or something that your child really gets. So you put this aside for a second. Now the second phase is you teach your child some form of relaxation technique. It could be meditation, it could be, I think they mentioned, I don't know, or maybe another question brought up music. Music is often very, very calming. It could be exercise, deep breathing. We teach our kids breathing and counting. So very basic first for early kids, young kids. We'll just teach them to go 1, 2, like that, and then they'll just breathe through and it'll calm them down. There are many relaxation techniques. You could just look online. I mean, there are things like, I don't know, imagining visual imagery, imagining a very peaceful place or picture or something. There's a million different things, and every child has a different one. And it could be something even like taking a bubble bath or whatever it is that's calming. So, and then the third phase of this whole procedure, desensitization, is pairing those two. So you're conditioning Remember about a half an hour ago, I was talking about how like a loud sound and with the bunny rabbit paired together caused the bunny rabbit to take on the potential of the loud sound and became scary. So this is exactly the reverse of that. Okay. So what you're doing is you're taking something that's already fear-evoking, like a picture of rain. You start with the lowest picture of rain, and you're pairing it with something that's highly rewarding or relaxing, and you're pairing them. So you look at a picture of rain and you're taking a warm, nice bubble bath. You're not going to be fearful of the picture of rain anymore. Let's go up and you go one by one. As you master each step, you go to the next one. So let's get to the point where, like, okay, if I'm listening to music and I'm watching something that is like a picture of or a video of rain and thunder, and mommy's holding my hand, all of this in animal, or maybe I have my stuffed animal, that's not going to be too fear-evoking, okay? Or but you make sure that the comfort level stays there, like it has to be a comfortable situation. So then you could have something like, well, rain is just like taking a shower, really, and what a simulation that would be the closest to being in thunder and rain is perhaps you would have your child put on their rain gear, and then you would have the outside sounds of thunder and rain, and you would actually have the child go in the shower. And so then they realize that this is not really fear-evoking, it's not something to be afraid of anymore, and they will get over it. But you essentially have to make sure you're producing some safety, comfort feeling, and you pairing that with each step of that hierarchy. And when you can go to the next step when this step has been mastered and the child's no longer fearful of this. So this might take a while, but it's doable. It's very easy to, it's doable. I've done this, I did this with my son when he was very little, and I did it with a lot of different kids. And it's pretty easy, and you can use it with any phobia, not just, rain or something like that. So.
Can I admit that one of the things that I find really reinforcing about working with my own child this way is how creative we get to be at problem solving.
Oh, totally.
And we get to think outside the box.
Absolutely,
and,
it's a lot of fun.
How many other families say, okay, so today what we're going to do is put on all of our clothes and get in the shower and play a tape of this because we're creating something more positive for our kids.
Absolutely, and the opposite of fear, of course, is laughter. Like if you can get your child to laugh during these experiences, he's not going to have fear. I spent with my son, his fear of water it just generalized. So it was not only just taking a shower, it just generalized to like even swimming, it generalized to going in the ocean, everything. It was massive. It was like he really feared water, period. And one year I remember I had taken him to Maui, and the entire week was this systematic desensitization process. Until the end of the week I could actually get him to go in the ocean. So it's a process, but yeah, it's really rewarding to do that with your kids.
Absolutely. We're going to take a short break and come back with more of your questions. Stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live during Ask Dr. Doreen. This is when we ask Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, a true expert in the field of autism, your questions. You can be sending them in to us on our live feature or on our Facebook page. Somebody had sent in a comment. I'm a new viewer. My son, age 6, is on the spectrum. Throughout the day, he makes loops out of strings and cords. Anything from shoelaces to phone cords or headsets, even hair strings and jewelry. What should I do to control this behavior as it interferes with his learning at school? I'd like to know what technique to use to diminish or extinguish it in all settings, at home and at school. Any advice is greatly appreciated. I love the jargon that they're using.
Diminish or extinguish.
In all settings. I love it.
Can I just say that I personally hate this one self-stimulatory behavior of twirling string and so on. She says he makes loops with that. Does that mean that he'll take a string? How do you interpret it? That he'll take something and just make loops with it like this? Is
That's
that what
how
he's
I would
doing?
interpret it. But if you're still watching, this was sent in just a couple of minutes ago. If you're still watching, write us in more information
Yeah, if you
about
could
it.
let us know, because like it's important to know exactly what the behavior is. Regardless, the only way that you can deal with this, because there are so many I guess objects that are string-like, right, in our environment, is that you will need to, I mean, in other words, normally I tell you need to prevent it, block it, and it just is, it's impossible because there are too many things out there that are like string-like, you know, the objects that he could do this with. So really, you would assume, we're not going to be sure about this, but we would assume that there's some function that's pleasing to him by him making these loops, and what we're going to try to do is replace that function. So what you would want to do is give him something else that's occupying his fingers or his hands in a way that is contradictory to making loops.
But it's reinforcing to him.
Well, it is. I mean, like for instance, anything that he's going to make loops with, or any object that he does this with, it wouldn't be necessarily reinforcing for us.
Right.
But for some reason it is for him.
Okay.
And the issue is, what aspect of that is it? Is he tying knots? I don't know. A lot of my kids will just twirl string. I don't know what he's doing. Some of the kids will look at the string as they're moving it. And so I'm not, you know, assuming that he's just making loops with it, like maybe holding it and putting his fingers through it or something. That's a little bit less, let's say, obvious. It's a little bit more benign than a child who also involves his visual self-stimulatory with the string. And I would just try to replace it, because it's just not going to happen. Like, there are too many things in every environment, as you mentioned, and unless you are there's someone with him 24/7, and on his case 24/7, he's just going to find various things to make loops with.
Right.
So the best thing would be to find something more appropriate for him to do. If the parent writes back in, we'll know exactly what it is he's doing. But keep in mind, like in
she says one loop like a twirl.
Right. So that means like taking a string and going like this with it, I assume. But let's say this. So in our culture here in the States, we don't really, I'm trying to think of, what do kids hold in their hands?
She's written in more information.
Okay.
He goes to where the strings are, could be anything, not necessarily do loops like circles, just touch it, usually just plays with it.
Okay. Then what I would say is, and I don't know if this seems odd to you or not, but you know, I did a lot of work in the Middle East for a lot of the royal families all over the Middle East, and we were there many, many years, very active there. And one of the things that's interesting is that in the Middle East you have these, they're like rosary beads. They're just like rosary beads, right? And after a certain age, all guys are holding on to these rosary beads and they're playing with them non-stop. They're just like holding on to them, and that's their purpose. They're not, it is somewhat, I think, a religious also thing in Islam, but it's not really like a rosary bead that you pray to or so on. It's just more something that occupies you. That's the concept that I'm talking about, is if you can find something that would be somewhat appropriate, perhaps, let's say, a keychain, perhaps, let's say, I don't know if it would work with him to have a pen, or pencil, or a pencil that has maybe string on it. Replace it. Teach him to do something that is less obvious, but yet is just as I guess rewarding for him, or just as stimulating. We do so many things ourselves that are normal, that we consider normal, that are very self-stimulatory.
Yeah.
For instance, a lot of people will just hold on to a pen and do this. Like, this would be normal. If I was doing this the whole show, nobody would really worry about it, know, and it would just be part of what I'm doing. So that's the type of thing I'm talking about. You have to find something that's acceptable in society and perhaps have him do that. Rather than these other things, because you're right. And then when he does approach those other objects, you need to stop him and redirect him back to the object or objects that he's able to use. In fact, you could actually give him his own location, like a drawer or a basket or something, where you can place these particular things, like rosary bead type things, or those bendable pencils. He might really like that. A lot of those types of sensory objects, and every time he goes for something else, you would just redirect him to that location and say, no, you can't go here, go get one of those. And that way he'll start to replace it.
There are so many things to choose from, and there are catalogs that just deal with these kinds of things. And sometimes going to a dollar store, you can find things. They have all those koosh balls that sometimes
totally.
That I've seen kids pulling on those and doing things. But obviously at 6, at some point, school is going to be a factor, and I would imagine that being able to write. And so I like the idea of the bendable pencil.
Well, and the other thing about it is that sometimes we think with our kids that. What I find with some of my kids is that as long as they know, the hardest concept with our kids is when you tell them no, they they don't realize that they can get to do this a little bit later. It's just no right now.
Yeah.
So in his case, if it starts to interfere with other things like schoolwork and so on, he can always just have the object, let's say a yo-yo or one of those bendable pens, on his desk, and he could learn that he will have access to it as soon as class is over.
Great.
And if it's that meaningful to him, and it sounds like he does take all objects and does this, and if it's that important to him for this, then you'd want to make sure that he knows there are, just like the other question we had, that there are with masturbation, that there are periods of time where you will be allowed to do this. It's just not now. And having the object in front of you sometimes helps the child be able to control themselves from grabbing at it or going for it somewhere else in the environment. And not that having something like this is going to be, the end all forever and this is all you can do with it, but it is definitely a good first step, because it's just too difficult to control when it's something as simple as a string or something. I mean, I look around this room and there's cables and wires and things. There's so many things that are that shape and that type of thing that would stimulate a child. So it's hard.
Absolutely.
It's hard. And I remember I had. You think that's hard. One of the hardest things I had with one of my kids was he was obsessed with touching leaves on a tree, and it was like the most incredibly difficult thing to teach him to stop doing, because how am I going to prevent him from having access to trees?
Right.
Yeah. So
it's not within the scope of what's capable. So you got to get around it somehow.
You can't modify the environment, right?
Yeah. Amazing. So patience and really thinking outside the box.
And just trying to replace it. And I would love it if this parent actually kept us informed. Keep telling us what's going on and if you've tried that.
Okay. All right. We have another person who's written in from Chicago, Illinois. I have a 12-year-old autistic son. 12-year-old, and lately he's been sticking his hands down his throat and vomiting several times a day. It's almost as if he's enjoying doing it. And any way we can try to stop this. They're in, as I said, in Chicago, and he continues to write, do we have any resources near Chicago? I am livid at the lack of resources here in Chicago.
We're in Chicago, actually. We're I'm not sure exactly what our address is, but we're in Chicago. We have a card office in Chicago.
I want to say it's Oak Park, but that could be wrong.
No, you're right.
Am I? That would be scary if I was right.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
I'm going to look it up right now.
And then I think we're trying to open a second one actually in the Naperville area too. So what I would suggest for that, and we've actually done, so there's a few different things about this process. Obviously, I guess you're preventing it when you can. I guess whenever you see it happening, you're there and you're stopping it. So I'm assuming that the child is doing this when they're alone. And the more you do this, the regurgitation actually, it becomes conditioned and becomes a lot easier over time. So a couple of different things I would say. First of all, we have some publications we did a lot of studies on rumination, and kids get pretty good at kind of regurgitating their food and then sort of munching on it or chewing on it again and swallowing it again, or swishing it around in their mouth and then chewing it again or swallowing. And that can be very, very harmful to them for many, many different reasons. First of all, what you're bringing up is much more acid, and that acid can not only really hurt your throat, your entire inside of your mouth, your tongue, everything, your teeth can erode. I mean, it becomes a problematic type thing, not to mention the fact that you're causing your stomach to work backwards, which is terrible. So we strangely, I don't know how, this was something you might want to talk with Jonathan about as well, because he was involved with this study. We found that the best replacement behavior was chewing gum. Strangely, I'm not sure how one of our people came up with that, but it was a great idea.
It's that creativity again.
And it worked. And so it was a gradual fade in of chewing gum and replacement behavior. And it was funny because for a while there, this was, I think, Denise Ryan, who was at that time managing our Rochester office, and right now she's part of the training team at CARD. She was involved with this study, and we used to make fun of it because we'd say, okay, Denise, now all of our kids all over the country who have rumination issues, we're going to send to you because you're an expert in this. But so we could send that study as well to the family if they like, because it does have a step-by-step guide on what to do. Having said that, though, I would do a couple of different things. First of all, I would definitely attempt to replace with some other things, such as gum chewing, which seems to work. But you might want to also get the stuff that they sell out there for kids who bite their fingers. I don't know what it's exactly called, like no bite, bite away, something like that. And I mean, they have it. It's bitter, but yeah, it's it's for stopping biting your fingers, and they have it at all drugstores. And I would put some on the child's fingers just because the child will then stop trying to. I think the parent had said the child puts their finger down their throat. Yes. So the child will hopefully stop doing that to begin with. And then, of course, what you would do is you'd have a non-contingent schedule. So you'd actually want to make sure that for the first few days, your child has access to chewing gum pretty constantly. That is, and I think that will only work if the rumination part of it is what's the reinforcing part of it.
Right.
So on the one hand, you're blocking it because the finger will taste bad. And on the other hand, you're replacing it with something that's appropriate, chewing gum. And that will most likely eliminate that behavior. It's a tough one, but it is an easy one to eliminate. It's not as hard.
Especially with professional help, I would assume, in this particular case.
Yeah, and all of these things that I suggest, for me, it's a natural thing. I'm a behavior analyst, a psychologist. I've been doing this for my whole life.
Yeah.
And even for me, when I did it, different things with my own kids, or if I always want to make sure that I'm like consulting with someone else or getting some expertise in there. I think it's helpful. And I think in some cases, probably you have your hands full with maybe other kids or life or whatever, as we all do. And if you have access to other professionals, I would really seriously recommend it. We can help with this. We do still, people don't realize that we still do provide our sort of what we used to call SOS services, specialized outpatient services. All you really have to do is call our Chicago office.
I've got the number right here. It is Oak Park. They can call the 800 number to start.
That's probably best.
And that's the 855-345-2273. But I'll also give the Chicago office number if you want to call and ask questions. It's 708-358-3000. And again, that's in Oak Park. It's on Marion Street in Oak Park. So if you're in the Chicago area, you should be close enough to qualify for services there.
Right.
And it is a state that has insurance reform, so there's at least a 50% chance that it would be covered by your insurance.
Right, and our operations manager there is Marisol, and so you can ask for Marisol and you can talk to her, and just make sure you tell her that you brought this up to me on Autism Live, and then what she'll do is she'll probably email me because she won't know what I'm talking about, and then I'll refer her back to the research group and we'll get some documents together for you. But then also if you need if you actually want someone to help, then of course we have supervisors there who can assist you, and you would just go in. They would either train you how to do it or they would officially do it for you, and use our staff to do that.
Okay, great advice. I'm going to try to squeeze in 2 more questions here.
Sure.
When a child has an extreme fear and or reaction, screaming and crying towards people, particularly with men, would this be a deficit in social interaction under the new criteria? So not asking how to solve it. Not asking how to solve it, but does this count? I'm wondering if they're trying to see, does my child qualify? Does this qualify as a social deficit?
Yeah, it would in my mind, because anything that prevents you from behaving appropriately socially would be considered a social deficit. Okay. But, you know, it's just... So yeah, it's a phobia. And if you have phobias, that would be considered and they are detrimental to the point that they prevent you from, let's say, having a male teacher or having male therapists or going to a gym where there are men or whatever. I mean, obviously it can be pretty detrimental depending on how severe it is. So yeah.
Okay. And then we've already talked a little bit in the show about how we can overcome these things, but just answering the question, yes, it would more than likely be considered deficit in social interaction. Next question. My 4-year-old has autism and he's high functioning. He is currently obsessed with his toy trains and stims with them by watching the wheels and by repetitively moving them back and forth.
Yeah.
He will do this as much as he can. Should I remove them altogether, or what would Dr. Doreen suggest?
Yeah, I would probably at this point remove them altogether unless there's someone there who can actually teach him how to play. And this is very, very common with our kids. A lot of our kids, when they first come in, the play with cars is like this, you know, where they're looking at the wheels, or it's like this, where they're turning the wheels. And that is repetitive, rote, stereotypical behavior, self-stimulatory behavior. And we stop it. And every time the child does that, we just simply say, no, play with it right, and put it on the ground and start to teach pretend play and actual play going up and down bridges and roads and so on and so forth. So unless there's someone there, I would try to get rid of things with wheels just for now. The whole concept with self-stimulatory stuff is it becomes so rote that the child is so ingrained in doing that they are not paying attention to anything else in the environment. So that's why you sort of want to reduce those types of things, because you want the child to have attention and access to everything in their environment. If a child does that, by the way, they're probably also going to be staring at ceiling fans, anything that goes around in circles and so on. So you just have to be aware of that. And again, you know, we don't know yet from a sensory perspective why some of our kids are so interested in things that are circular motion. Some of our kids, we don't know. And so having said that, you know, if the child is able to minimize their need to do these types of things to very, very discrete periods of time that are limited, and they're easily redirectable, excuse me, So in other words, they're not spending their whole day doing this, then I would say you don't stress out about it too much because it's fulfilling some need that we're not sure about yet. But if it starts to prevent the child from paying attention to anything else, if the child gets upset when you try to interrupt this pattern, if the child would rather do this than look at a person or interact with a person, then yeah, you would want to try to eliminate that.
Okay. I've got 2 more questions I want to get in, but I'm going to
Sure.
squeeze one more in. My son is 14 with ASD and is in grade 9, mainstream with some support in language arts. During the day, he is able to function with minimum to no stimming. However, once he gets home, he tends to go to his room or the restroom and goes ballistic, hand flapping and stimming a lot for a good 30 minutes. Should I just let it happen, or what else can I do?
Wow. That's kind of an interesting situation.
Yeah.
So the child is 14 and
14,
in
ASD,
school,
grade 9, mainstream.
Grade 9.
Only support in language arts. Is functioning well during the day.
Right. Well, why don't, please let me know the answer to this.
Okay.
Why don't you ask him why he needs to do that? Just ask him, why do you need that half hour? What are you doing? What does the hand flapping produce for you? It seems to me that it's a wind down of some type. If it's only for half an hour after school, it's still not something that I'd want to ignore for a child who's, you know, in a mainstream, so close to typical development. I still wouldn't want to just let it go. I'd question and I'd say, why do you do this and what does it do for you? And perhaps you might want to suggest some other activities that would have similar calming effect, like depending on where you live. I don't know, like swimming tends to be a wind down activity for kids. Gym type stuff like a trampoline. And again, what you're doing is you're kind of dancing. I mean, a lot of movement in dancing ends up looking like self-stimulatory behavior if you really think about it.
I never thought about it before, but yes.
It really is. So it's a matter of just taking what he's doing and turning it into some activity that could be classified as sort of appropriate. Maybe, you know, painting on a large easel or wall or something would involve it's just, you don't want to, you know, if you ignore it right now as he gets into the age and starts like getting friends, and it'll start looking odd to his friends, and it'll be a secret he has to keep, and it'll start to isolate him from his community and his peers. So I wouldn't just ignore it, but at the same time, I think if he's that high functioning, I would just go and ask him, like, why do you do this? What does it do for you? Does it calm you? And then I would suggest other things that might be a little bit less odd appearing.
Okay, great. We are so out of time, and I apologize because there were so many more questions. We're going to keep plugging away at them throughout the week and continue on next week. Thank you so much for being here and giving us so much information. Absolutely. I learned, and I'm sure that you guys at home did too. So we're going to take a break and go to the A Word. This is the ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy who was diagnosed with autism at 2. At this point in the video, he's 4 years old, and he's learning how to appropriately play with his baby sister. How do you interact with siblings? So take a look. This is the A Word. When we come back, we'll be joined by Nancy Alsbaugh-Jackson for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast. I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
Jack. Oh, that was okay. Try again. Go over there and walk back to her again. Jack Riley, come back and walk nicely to her. Walk nicely. Oh, yeah, high fives! Yay! You did it! She's so happy.
So you guys are doing more programs trying to incorporate sister?
Yes, trying to have them tolerate being around her and practicing having them engage in the same activity. For his target right now is 2 minutes, so we're hopefully trying to increase the time. But she's going to be around forever, so we do want him to get used to being around her and accepting that she will get into his stuff every now and then, or all the time. We're gonna do nice playing with Lainey, okay? We're gonna do it 5 times, all right? All right, so you put on a piece and then Lainey Grace can put one on. Yay! Look, you get your first X. Good job, buddy. We're gonna keep going. That was excellent. Okay, Lainey's turn.
Here you go.
Good job. Okay, Lainey. Okay, I'll help your sister. Yes, a potato head.
Wait, your turn.
Good job. Should we put the ear on Lainey? Purpose of outings that we go on with our kids is to have them get exposure to the community, and we go with them to assist the parents and to model for them how to redirect inappropriate behaviors when they do happen, how to even prompt the kids to interact with other kids, so when they do go out and we're not there, it's a lot easier for them, and it just becomes more natural for the parents and the kids.
Usually I'm pretty on edge at a park when he walks up to a group. I never know what he's going to do. Sometimes it's imagined, and then sometimes he justifies it.
Nick was diagnosed with autism in 1994 at the age of 4. He received 5 years of therapy from CARD that eventually faded out. Nick recovered from autism in 2001.
The song I'm about to perform is by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. CARD helped many patients, myself, to recover to this level now.
Cheryl and Mike's son, Jack Riley, was diagnosed with autism in 2010 at age 2. He's been receiving therapy from CARD for a year and a half. Today, Cheryl, Mike, and Nick meet for the first time.
I'm curious as to what you remember.
I certainly remember pretty long sessions, and I'd be frustrated if I would make mistakes. I mean, I remember one time I had to count a row of 6 blocks, kept messing up. That was really difficult.
No. I need it. I need it.
At what point do you recall hearing the word autism?
I was able to figure out what I was going through without anybody having to tell me.
Our concern is if it's a big secret to hide. I don't know what we can say.
No one ever told you, you just discerned
But
it?
the reason I'm comfortable talking about this is because I felt it. In therapy, I certainly began questioning why people reacted as they did based on what I said and did. Particularly because of difficulties I was facing in school. It got to a point where I wanted to understand why it was. I entered while still going through therapy and still showing significant signs of the mental condition. Even after I'd improved to a significant extent, there were those who still gave me a hard time for it.
Did it hurt your feelings when you were in school, the way that kids...
Oh, absolutely, because it was bullying, it was harassment.
That scares us.
They called me names. I was basically, when it came to sports and PE, I was usually the last kid chosen.
Did teachers intervene?
Fortunately, not really. I mean, it was just so hard for me to talk about it because of how ashamed I felt. Certainly the first few years of elementary school, I don't think I really had the most supportive teachers. I mean, I remember my mom told me how my first grade teacher once said that she thought I had no chance of getting anywhere. And going away to college and out of state and being the only person for my old school district has made a difference. It's just really improved my social life tremendously because I got to be me, because with nobody knowing about my past, I wasn't faced with these misconceptions and prejudgments.
Do you tell people, new people that you meet?
No, that's not the first thing I will ever
No, I would
tell.
hope it's not the
And
first
you
thing.
know what? In most cases, I never do, because while it's a part of my past, it doesn't define who I am. I mean, just thinking back to the very beginning, pretty much each episode, autism, what, not who.
I want to tell you right now, though, I'm so impressed with you.
Likewise.
I want you to know that.
Likewise. I mean, your son really inspires me just as much, because I'll tell you, anytime
I adore him, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't challenging.
I mean,
it's cost me the stuff that like career things, goals.
I don't care about those anymore. I work at night. I'm tending bar. Not that I'm too good for that. I'm just saying that's what I do. I want him to have a chance.
Right.
And you inspire me now.
Thank you. The feeling goes both ways. The feeling's mutual.
Before you leave today, we would like you to meet Jack.
I would love to.
This is Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Hey, Jack Riley.
All right, should we try this? I'm gonna try to take a picture of all of you. 1, 2, and 3.
Jack Riley, you rock.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod. Welcome. Your hair looks gorgeous.
Thanks, I chopped it off. You inspired me when you shaved yours.
You're inspiring me because mine needs some shape or something. Look at how fabulous that
thank
looks.
you, darling.
I love it.
It's a lot of women are chopping off, you know. We got move over Miley Cyrus, move over Michelle
As long as we don't have to twerk. Can we just not have to twerk?
No twerking. But guess who's coming to Denim and Diamonds for Autism on October 6th? Alan Thicke. Alan Thicke.
The older,
his son is Robin.
Right.
And when Daphne, our event producer, booked him, I said, can he come on twerking to Blurred Lines? Does everybody know about this?
I think everybody's heard too much about it.
Too much about it. Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to it because I loved Alan Thicke when he was on Growing Pains.
Me too.
So I look forward to meeting him.
Me too. Yeah, that's our big fundraiser that we do once a year. It is a fundraiser, so when people say, wow, $250 a ticket, actually a lot of fundraisers charge $500 a ticket. And
that money goes to make sure that you have money to fund
grants. It pays for our staff, it pays for our computers, it pays for our grant program, all of that. And then the other fundraisers of the year we use for the grants themselves. So.
And in fact, at this year's Denim and Diamonds, you are going to be honoring somebody who's going to be joining us next week.
Yes, Vin DeBona. He's a TV legend. He created the most popular, longest-running show on television, America's Funniest Home Videos. I had the honor of working with Vin. We did a show with Richard Simmons back in the day, and he's just a great man. He's also from Boston, spent time there. And he is legendary. He's such a gentleman. You're going to love him.
I got to meet him on the red carpet last year at Denim and Diamonds, and I kind of gushed over him. There are a lot of, stars and beautiful people, and I gushed over Vin because we've watched America's Funniest Home Videos with our son, and in fact, that's one of the ways that we taught humor to Jem was using America's Funniest Home Video.
Okay.
But also on Sunday night when we would sit down at 7 o'clock as a family and watch that, it was our de-stress family time. And it's really, if you ask my husband, it's the first time that we heard Jem giggle. And he will, even to this day, he will laugh so hard he'll fall off the couch.
I'm going to have to start getting Wyatt hooked on it.
And now it's on so many different channels that you don't have to wait till Sunday. You can watch it if you have cable. It's on almost every hour of the day.
It's on all kinds of networks.
And when things are going in the toilet, it's a good thing to put on.
It's a good thing to laugh when things are going in the toilet. And maybe we can talk then into giving something away next week, like maybe a visit to the set or something.
Oh my goodness.
Wouldn't that be fun?
I will be chartreuse with envy, whoever gets to go.
All right.
But we have an exciting guest today that we're going to get to in just a little while, but we have some stories in the news to touch on before we do that.
Right.
Some things that were kind of near and dear to our heart, dealing with art. And I'm very excited that there are going to be many artworks done by individuals on the autism spectrum that are going to be on display in the Smithsonian. And that just gave me chills when I heard that. Isn't that exciting?
Especially because my little boy, his thing is art. Your little boy's thing is computers.
Yeah.
Jim's thing is computers. Wyatt's thing is art. He paints, one would say obsessively. And actually, I should bring in one of his egg carton masterpieces.
Yes.
He paints egg cartons and Starbucks cardboard cartons and does these amazing designs on them. And we're actually thinking about making a mobile out of them. But his thing is definitely art. So when I heard this, it really made me feel like, wow, this is really a great step towards recognizing the abilities. It's a guy named Dallas. W.R. Lumen. He's a 25-year-old with autism from Coleraine, Mass. He's going to take a major step toward his dream of becoming a professional artist when his artwork goes on display at the Smithsonian Institution on October 1st. as a part of Emerging Artists with Disabilities, organized by Very Special Arts. I hadn't heard of this organization, so I'm happy to hear of them.
Very excited. And there's going to be 14 other artists that their work is also going to be displayed. It's a very exciting thing.
Yes, and they get $60,000 in awards, so it's so nice. He's going to get an award of excellence for 2000, so he's actually making money off his art, which we're trying so much to encourage businesses and entrepreneurs to hire our young adults, to hire our adults with autism, and to pay them for their talents, because this, you know, we know this is when they become adults, parents refer to it as the cliff. The services stop, their children are out in the world. The majority of adults, young adults with autism, live with their families or in assisted care, and we need to start rewarding them for their abilities.
Yes, absolutely. And and sort of as a companion piece to it, a story that you brought to my attention this week, because art is so important and it's a way of communicating. There's a young woman, Tazia Fawley, age 43, who spent the last 6 months crafting a painting that she decided to give to Will and Kate, and
for the royal baby.
For the royal baby, and we've got a picture here on the iPad of
so darling.
Tazia doing her drawing, and I'm going to scroll down so you can see the actual the drawing that she did.
Look how great this is that you can do this.
Yes.
Wow, Shannon.
I've got a lot of stuff up on the screen though right now. Let's try to scroll in. So this is the beautiful painting that she did for the royal baby. And we were told that they weren't accepting gifts.
Right, but they accepted this gift as an expression of their appreciation for special needs individuals. And I think it was just a lovely gesture.
Absolutely. And Tazia is an individual who's living with Down syndrome.
Down syndrome, near and dear to my heart, because my brother was Down syndrome.
And she is a very prolific artist. And if people are interested in knowing more about this, they're called Taz Paintings. And so excited that the royal family decided to make an exception.
Me too. Me too. I really think it speaks to the heart of Will and Kate, because I think they're just, I really love them. I think they're just so refreshing.
Yes. They seem very down to earth.
Down to earth, very much in love.
Yes.
And I think it's a great example that they're setting.
Yes, and we're thrilled for them about their baby boy, and thrilled that they took this opportunity to make a statement and say we're gonna accept this. So really wonderful. Now, on a lesser note, things not so exciting.
Right.
You wanna head off on this story?
Yeah. Special needs kids not allowed in school after bus breaks down. This is a disturbing story. We like to bring you the good news and the bad news. 11 special needs students were forced to wait outside for rides when their bus broke down. This was in Arizona.
I believe so.
Yeah,
yes.
and hot there, okay?
Yes.
When their bus broke down because school officials were afraid they would disrupt an after-school program underway inside. Parents were not notified of the incident, leaving at least one mother panicked, as you can imagine, as she called around the Tucson Unified School District in search of her 6-year-old nonverbal daughter. Could not find her daughter. That's because her daughter was sitting outside, not allowed to go into the school because everybody was afraid that the children would do, I guess, some behavior that might upset everyone. So, anyway, do you want to keep going with this?
Well,
I mean, it just makes me so angry.
It makes me so angry, too. And the response from the school, there was a spokeswoman, Kara Reen, who, when she was speaking to the Arizona Daily Star, said that they regret the incident. Well, thank you very much. When asked why they weren't allowed to wait inside, in a written response, she said that the supervisor vans arrived later than anticipated. She pointed out that the students waited in a shaded area and had access to indoor restrooms and water, and were under adult supervision at all times. The district offered no explanation as to why the students could not wait inside. I'm sure that they do regret it because they're getting a lot of bad press about it. But, you know, on a very hot day, and the one mom in particular who was looking for her daughter is very sensitive to sun, and very sensitive to heat, as a lot of our kids are, and a lot of kids with special needs are. My goodness, a lot of us in general are, and we wouldn't have been then not allowed into the building
It's
on a hot day.
not just the physical aspect of it, though, Shannon, that disturbs me. It's the sense of shame.
Yes.
Shaming our kids to make them believe that they're not as good as. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit upset about this.
No.
But it's shame, and it's taught early. Our kids are taught that they don't measure up, they're not as good as, and they're taught this sense of shame at a very young age. And if you take a child and you tell them you can't do that, you can't go in there, but you don't give them a reason that they can't go into their school when their bus is broken down, no, you have to wait here. What message does that send to a child? I'm not good enough.
Right. It's unacceptable on all fronts. And I also take issue, I'm a control freak, so for me, I take issue with the fact that the parents weren't notified either.
Definitely.
You know, if I have entrusted you to take care of my child, I want to know what's going on. We've got a story that we're going to be covering next week of a woman whose child came home the other day from school and had a big bruise on the wrist, and no one had notified her, took her child to the hospital, and come to find out, broken wrist.
Oh my gosh.
Broken bone. And, you know, getting the runaround about what happened and how it happened, both from the police and from the school. We have the right to know when something happens, when it happens to our children at school. And that's a really tough climb with a lot of schools, getting them to understand that we are a part of our kids' teams and we should be included.
That's right. Okay, so that was not a great story, but we do have a good story from Ohio.
Yes, very exciting.
The U.S. Department of Education is telling Ohio that intensive treatment for autism, ABA, must be made available to any child who is considered a good candidate.
Absolutely. This is a really important landmark thing for all of us to be aware of, because as we're getting insurance reform in different places and it's trickling down, we're getting a lot of pushback saying, well, you can't give it here and you can't give it there. And this is another check in our column to be able to say, hey, this court has said, this individual has said, this Department of Education, it's absolutely essential.
And once again, took a lawsuit, evidently, right?
Yes.
Took a lawsuit. Always saying, why do we have to go there? But yeah, a Claremont County, Ohio couple filed the lawsuit. Their 3-year-old son, Roman. It's Holly and Robert Young. Go Holly and Robert.
Yes.
They say their 3-year-old son had made good progress, but they were not, being covered. So they pursued this and paved the way for other families. And it often takes going this far. But
absolutely,
we know ABA works, and we know it is a necessary treatment.
Absolutely. And listen to this statement. The federal department's director of special education programs told state officials in a letter last week that Ohio must make early intervention services available that include applied behavior analysis. The department is going to be monitoring the litigation in Ohio, and that state is responsible for following those rules.
Great.
We love that.
I know Doreen, Dr. Doreen must have seen this, because we got the information from Senator Steinberg's office on this. They're wonderful, Bob Giavatti, about sending us stories several times a week. Thank you, Bob, for sending us all these news stories and updates. So this is great news.
And we have a wonderful guest who's going to be joining us in the next segment.
And we're going to talk about horses and animals, my favorite topic besides kids.
Susan Latween Carr, who is the founder and executive director of ELSA, Experience Learning Support with Animals, is going to be joining us. So we're going to take a break, come back with Susan. Stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What
yes.
did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle. Without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Joining us live in the studio is Susan Latween Carr. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, Susan, you are the executive director and founder of ELSA, and that stands for Experiencing Learning Support with Animals. Is that correct?
Correct.
Tell us what the mission of ELSA is.
We serve special needs and individuals on the autism spectrum by pairing them with horses and ranch animals, the human-animal interaction in the ranch setting. And we do that to build confidence, social skills, and sensory awareness.
Absolutely amazing. And so what kind of programs do you have for individuals with ASD?
We've been doing the work for about 4 or 5 years now. We're just starting our 5th year. And what we have come up with is a program called Family Fun Day or Ranch Fun Day. And that's a way for families who have individuals with autism or any kind of special need to come and check out the ranch setting. That's an event that we underwrite. It's for free, and the families get finally some fun, respite, rejuvenation, and it's for the entire family. Because
and where is the ranch?
Well, actually, ELSA, we don't own the ranch.
Okay.
We are aligned with ranches that are otherwise used for private purposes and aren't using their animals in this sort of community.
I might be able to be a part of this.
Well, we actually, partnering with ranches and also partnering agencies in the community is a really critical component. Because if you have a ranch and you have horses,
Yes.
you know, it's very involved day to day just to keep the ranches going and the animals healthy and supported. And so what we do is create the programs. We have our Ranch Fun Day. We have a ranch skills program that we're doing with young adults right now for transitional skills. Wonderful. And then we have also a brand new program called Ranch Riding. Okay. And so all of these in the ranch setting enable the participants to come in either with their family to have fun or with a ranch riding program to get a little bit more exposure to not just the unmounted activities of grooming and tacking up a horse and then getting on the back of a horse. They'll get the physical benefits as well.
Well, we're going to talk more about all these things when we come back, but
Terrific.
how can people get more information?
Well, certainly our website, we rely on that. We are elsainc.org. We are also active because we need to be with social networking, and so you can find us at facebook.elsainc.com. I think Facebook/Elsa Inc. is where you would find us there.
Okay, great. All right, well, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk more in depth about the program.
Terrific.
Okay, we'll be right back.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3, they shut down, and sometimes you think of the typical Rain Man movie. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
Stand up.
She didn't even acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really do anything. She just basically lined up her toys and that was about it. We have a team of 7 volunteers, or 8 now. We have 8 volunteers, including my husband and I. And I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks. And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights, and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, well, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial base? Well, what Skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or even our laptop, and she can sit down and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
At least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing something, missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where Skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this?
Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before Skills, it was a lot of, okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know in most manuals you find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for Skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November, and it seemed like by January something just clicked, and she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis, and now with this new Skills and being, you know, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because in 7 months' time, she has just blossomed into this normal, functioning child, and suddenly, we joke about it all the time, like suddenly we have twins.
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you could do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Our special guest in the studio with us right now is Susan Latween Carr. Thank you for being with us. You are the founder and executive director of ELSA, which stands for Experience Learning Support with Animals. And we were talking during the break about how this is different than a traditional riding program.
It is. We've actually been doing the work for 4 years. We're just starting our 5th year. And up until very recently, we've done all the work on the ground. We believe that coming into the ranch environment can be a very organic, natural, fun, full sensory experience. And so we don't limit the experience to just showing up and getting on the horse and riding, which has tremendous benefits. But we actually go into the pasture with the horses. We've been in 3-acre pastures where horses and donkeys and sheep are all moving freely. And so that's actually a really good part of this program because it's, first of all, so much fun, and it's an opportunity for, I think, our participants to really come in and connect, and gives us an opportunity to see where the connections are challenging and where they're really easy that we can promote. So,
now, Susan, before we brought you on the set, we were talking about the story of the school bus breaking down, and we were talking about shame.
Devastating.
And you came in wiping your eyes. You said, do I have mascara under my eyes? And you have a story to share about that.
Yes, we have found with a lot of the families bringing in their kids who are on the spectrum, they get into the ranch setting where there is this sense of freedom. It's both really structure and space in the program that we're providing. It feels like it's open space and freedom, but it's also structured. So when one of the participants came into the chicken area, he fell in love with the chickens. Now, the ranch has horses and mini horses and goats, but he loves the chickens. And his mother was so touched because we actually encouraged and empowered him to be able to make a safe connection without the chickens flying away, or, you know, and so we took the time and really let him take his time. Yeah. And his mother pulled me aside and said, we never let him into the petting zoos because he's too wild.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to control
And you said
his
a lot
emotions.
of our children on the spectrum are not allowed to go into petting zoos by the attendants.
That's right, and this is the stories I hear from the parents because the kids get excited or wild or
and
try
they're
to
like, okay, well, your child can't go in here because they're special needs and they're going to cause a problem.
Sad.
Right?
And so this is right. But we don't believe that. We go in and we actually let our other youth volunteers, model the appropriate connections, and then we just work with them and point out how they can connect. So then Andrew, the boy who loves the chickens, he's been to the ranch many times. He only had one meltdown. That was the first time we told him he couldn't stay with the chickens. He needed to, come and be with some of the other animals.
Right.
But he learned flexibility. So his second time back, he was able to be with the chickens. He was with the other animals, and then he was able to be with the chickens at the end.
That leads us to the question, how does this work complement ABA therapy?
Well, ABA therapy is proven to be such a critical component and early on. We have found that the ranch setting is an environment where the individuals with autism can really sort of practice their sensory-based thinking. And that's different than being in the ABA environment. When you get out into the ranch, the sense of freedom where they can move away from or towards the animals or whatever sensory stimulus they're getting on their own accord, because there is a real freedom in the ranch. You can stay inside the paddock or you can move outside the paddock. You can stay connected to finger painting the horse or giving the horse a bath, or you don't have to. So we feel like the moving in and moving away on their own initiative lets them practice a lot of the skills that they're learning in the ABA setting.
How did you get involved with this? How did you come up with this?
I didn't really have very much experience with autism or special needs on a family level, but when I landed in a ranch setting as a volunteer, when I had my daughter, I took some time off and started to do some volunteer work in the ranch setting.
Because you have a marketing background?
Yes, I have 25 years of business and marketing. Don't hold that against me. I'm now able to really use that in a setting that I feel is very, very beneficial for the special needs population.
So you started volunteering?
So I started volunteering in the ranch setting, and it wasn't until one of the teachers brought in her students on the spectrum that I looked around. I said, I don't really see the symptoms. The kids were having a tremendous amount of fun. They were connecting to the animals. They were participating. Really engaged, and so that's when I started to see how beneficial the horses and the ranch setting could be for the the individuals with autism. And so from there we started our journey.
And you're fairly new. How long?
Yes, we're a small nonprofit, small and emerging. We've been we were founded in 2009, and so we're just moving into our 5th year.
Right. But you've already seen some successes with the kids. Tell us about some of the things that you've seen that have been awesome.
We sure have. It's been incredible. Let's see, back in the beginning, we started a program that was a little bit more intensive. We had a boy named Dean who came into the ranch setting 3 times a week for the summer. And he just spent a couple hours there. But Dean, we had been told by his parents, had never, or maybe only on 1 or 2 occasions, taken his shoes off outside because he had extreme sensory situations with his feet and hands. And about halfway through the summer, Dean was willing to take off his shoes and make footprints with paint while the horse made hoof prints with paint on the canvas. And shortly after that, we heard that Dean actually went to the beach and took off his shoes, and they didn't have a bathing suit, but they went in his clothes. So he was able to practice his sensory experiences in the ranch setting, and doing it with a horse made it so much more fun. So Dean is a real success story. We also have Hannah, who's a 20-year-old individual, cerebral palsy and autism, and she came to our Ranch Fun Day with her family, and her mom wrote to us shortly after and said, we have not seen Hannah come alive, and the spark in her eye when we talk about the animals and the ranch setting. And so Hannah actually has had an opportunity to come back and become a volunteer. She's very social, and she is our greeter, and she helps us transition in our family events. So those are 2 individuals. We have more, all in their own unique ways.
You know, the animals just have a special magic. They're so intuitive, and our children on the spectrum are so intuitive.
Yes.
That there's just that special magic that happens that sometimes we're not even prepared for. You know, you just put them together and those connections come out. I know that with my son, being a horse owner, and he's been riding his whole life, and the connection that has happened because of that, the confidence it's given him. I really encourage families to check out these kinds of programs.
Absolutely.
So how can people get involved with yours?
Okay, well, we have a website. You can check elsainc.org. We're also on Facebook if you like to keep up with the pictures. And you can also contact us on the phone. Area code 310-403-9665 is how to reach us. And we're interested in partnering with agencies in the community who work with these populations and families, and potentially other ranches to be able to expand. We're currently in Malibu and Calabasas. We have 5 ranch associations, and we're also looking to expand up into Ventura.
Great. Well, I'm going to check it out for Wyatt. You're right near me, Calabasas. And
when is the Family Fun Day?
We have a Family Fun Day once a month, weather permitting.
Okay.
And that's an event that we open up. Families come for free. They're our guest, and we limit it to 10 families so that it's a really intimate experience. It's 2 hours of animal fun, activities. We do all different kinds of things, sometimes some art projects. Wyatt might like that too. We also do a little bit of gardening, but it's just really getting back to nature. And the Family Fun Day, you can find out about the next upcoming dates on our website. And we just encourage you to get in early. We also will work with partnering agencies for a Family Fun Day.
Great.
For example, we work with Miller Career Center, and they will be having a Family Fun Day for their group.
Well, I think it's remarkable what you do, and I'm so thrilled that you had the time to come and tell us about it.
I'm so thrilled you had me in. We really appreciate you.
So great to have you, and keep up the amazing work with our kids. We need more people like you in the community.
Absolutely. We're going to take a break, and we'll come back with more of Autism Live, and Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy after these messages.
Our twins, Justin and Jessica, were premature babies. So we always were very conscientious of their development. But I think it was probably 15 months, Justin started getting really obsessive compulsive with opening and closing doors. And Justin started tantruming a lot too. These would be major tantrums that were just completely debilitating to the family.
Having to take them out of the house, put them in the car, drive around, just to calm them down.
I remember a breaking point and just thinking, you know what, we got to do something. This is not right. Once we were on the track to getting a diagnosis for autism, we started sharing that with our close friends and family. It just so happens that somebody from our older daughter's private school called us out of the blue. She introduced herself and she says, I know that recovery is possible. Those words so early in our journey were a guiding force for us. As we got more educated in knowing what is effective therapies for kids with autism, we realized quality ABA is vital to that progress. That's where we decided that CARD was the right provider for us and for our son. Justin responded very well to therapy. The behaviors were tracked, and we saw that what was being instituted was working.
Justin, what are you doing?
I'm coloring.
You are coloring. Good for you.
There was real progress, and it was progress that was tangible.
I just remember when he made a sentence, he said a sentence. We were just happy about it, going, no way, I can't believe you just did that.
What's the date?
The 18th.
18th of what month?
December.
Oh, what year is it?
2007.
Oh, okay. So how old are you today then?
5.
The therapies that CARD did for Justin didn't just impact his daily living skills, but it was a positive impact on our entire family.
I'm Justin. I am in 4th grade. I like playing video games sometimes. My dream to build a teleporter machine. It's like sometimes if like we're on an airplane and it's like really long, you guys just say, oh, hurry up with that teleporter machine. We're waiting on you. And I just started Friday Night Lights. This is our 3rd game of the season, and it's pretty fun. You have to be fast.
We attribute so much of Justin's recovery to CARD. Their goal was the same as our goal. We wanted Justin recovered. June 12, 2008 is a day that I celebrate every year because that is the day that Justin was deemed recovered from autism. And Dr. Doreen met with us, looked at him and just said, he's brilliant. You need to keep his mind stimulated because he's very smart and he has no residual traits of autism.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We were just watching in the break Justin Marquin, who his mother, Laura, worked with us at Act Today for a while, and wonderful lady, and wow, shows you recovery is possible.
And you know, I particularly, he's not the only child that I've met like this now, but I probably had more time with Justin than most children his age who have recovered from autism. A couple of years ago, he and my son did a news piece together where they were featured in it, and they got to play together pretty much for a day. And they're the exact same age.
Right.
And it was fascinating to me to see the difference between, because you know my son is constantly getting closer to recovered, but he's not recovered.
Right.
And I sometimes go, well, what's the difference?
Yeah.
And then I put him with a neurotypical kid and I go, oh, there's the difference. But to put him with Justin and have the two of them next to each other, you know, it just gave me that much more hope for doubling down, because there were things that Justin does easily now that are part of Justin that Jem still struggles with. But you know, I could get that pain in my heart about why this child and not my child.
Not mine. Right.
But,
we've all been there.
But
shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Right. right? But I always remind myself that our kids are all different, and that it lets me know where the bar is, and that it's possible, and that if I keep moving in a direction, it's that Dory thing from Nemo, just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming.
Shannon, that's a great reminder.
I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but every time my son makes progress to a new thing, our lives get better.
Right.
Right?
You know, I always say to people, not all children will recover, but all children will get better.
That's right. That's right. Progress.
That's what's important to remember.
It absolutely
Wyatt has continually gotten better. I do know that Justin started very young, at the age of 2. How old was Jem when you started him?
Jem was 3 when he started ABA, so we
Wyatt
were
was almost 5.
Right.
We didn't get him diagnosed till 3. No one said the words ABA to me until I heard Dr. Grandbrochet at a conference when he was 4. And it was the summer of his 4th year that we got him. So he was 4 3/4. So 2.5 years, really important years that, you can be working on these issues. So.
And it comes up on Facebook a lot. People ask a question and say, oh, a friend of mine, I saw some signs and I don't know whether to say something or not.
Right.
And I don't know about you, and I've been meaning to ask you about this. I used to be really squeamish about when somebody would say, oh, when my child was diagnosed, and I would say, I really want to suggest that you want to look into ABA. I really want to encourage you to check that out. But I would really soft pedal. And when they wouldn't do it, I would just gently remind. And then about a year ago, somebody said to me, Shannon, why didn't you yell at me and throw a brick at my head and say, you're going to be so angry at yourself if you don't go do this today?
Well, you actually have a segment on Autism Live that initially the mother, Cheryl, for your segment with Jack Riley.
Oh, yes.
She, a dear friend of mine, contacted me and said, my friend who works with me here at Disney would like to talk to you. Yes. And she contacted me. Jack Riley was just diagnosed. He was just under 2. Yeah. And I basically said, you've just been given an enormous gift.
Yes.
You've gotten an early diagnosis, and here's what you need to do. You need to get 40 hours a week of ABA. Yeah. You need to try this. I gave her a list of things that she needed to start now. She was very reticent. Yeah. And I said, look, I'm telling you what I would have done.
Right.
And I do this. I send a letter and I say, this is what you do. And if you don't follow it, I've got plenty of parents out there that need help. So, and I'm pretty adamant about it. I'm pretty cut and dry.
And I am now too, but I didn't used to be until this mom said to me, why did you couch it in such iffy terms?
I don't couch.
I don't anymore. That's why I say to all of you guys, you need to get access to, and as early as possible.
And when I say 40 hours a week, they go, what? I can't do 40 hours a week, or this, and this. And I say, you know what? Then this is what's recommended. Yeah. And this is what you need. And I know it seems like a mountain right now. Yeah. And I do recommend that they try some biomedical things.
Absolutely.
The diet helped my child enormously. There are things that have helped Wyatt enormously. There are things that haven't. But I say your child is young enough that you can do these things now.
Yeah.
And you can do the things we know work.
Right.
And do them.
Yeah. You got to get on it.
Yeah.
But I think, for you, especially because you wish that somebody had said that to you.
Absolutely. Never heard the words. I was told regional center by the school district. I was told regional center provides after-school activities like gymnastics and horseback riding. I thought, well, I've got horses in my backyard.
Right.
So that's not going to help me. And literally, we were a year and a half into the journey when I heard Doreen at a conference, and I called my husband and I said, I just heard the woman who's going to help our son.
Yeah.
And, my life changed after that. And also a biomedical doctor, Andrew Levinson. So it really, and that's why I got involved with this work, Shannon.
Yes.
I wish I had known sooner. And I thought, why me, a television producer, an author? I had what I thought of contacts, in the medical community. But why not me, is what I found out.
Exactly.
And sometimes we don't choose our journeys, they choose us.
Yes.
And I knew there was a reason for this. There's no accident that I had a brother with Down syndrome, a child with autism. There's a reason for everything. And if my experiences and your experiences can help all of you out there, so be it.
But here's my question for us for today, is that I know every single autism mom that I know has some regret about some period of time in which things didn't happen, and it's different for each one of us. For me, I feel like it was that I listened to the pediatrician the first time I said there's a problem, and I lost 6 months there, and I listened to the other pediatrician who said don't do ABA, so I lost 6 months there.
Okay.
And I do beat myself up about that and go, that year is lost forever. I know I have seen you beat yourself up about the time.
Almost 3 years lost, 2 3/4.
And so for those of you watching and for us as well, my question is, what's it going to take for us to forgive ourselves for that lost time?
Thank you for that. You know, we have to practice forgiveness.
Yes, because it's so easy for me to look at you and say, Nancy, you know, you are so forgiven for that lost time. I can absolutely say that with certainty for you. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are forgiven for that lost time. It's not on your ticket. I can't do it for myself.
Wow.
Isn't that, you know, and I'm sure that there are other people watching too that have the same thing going on, that we take out that wet noodle and give ourselves 30 lashes on a regular basis.
We're going to be doing a new segment that I don't want to announce today. But it is my steps to empowerment for parents, and boy, when I give them, do I say walk the walk, baby? Don't just talk the talk, because there are so many days that I beat myself up. And one of those is the 3 L's, which is love thyself, live in the moment, and laugh. Love thyself, because self-love, we give it to our children. When we love ourselves, when we accept ourselves, and when we forgive one another, we model for our children, and we create that aura around us. And it is so important. So important. Anyway, my friend, today is about forgiveness.
Yes.
For all of us,
right? For all of us. For what we didn't know on a day that we didn't know what was happening.
And God,
when we knew better, we did better.
You know, when I think of those refrigerator mothers, when I think of the women that went to their graves, not only being told there's no cure, there's no hope, and you're the cause of it. Your child's got to go in an institution. Think of them, Shannon, and think of how lucky we are.
Absolutely.
And gratitude and forgiveness.
And the thanks for the trail that they blaze.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely
Those
amazing.
Moms, I just hope they're up in heaven looking down.
Absolutely.
At all the wonderful progress.
Absolutely. I think they're with us.
Wow, this is an emotional day, huh?
It is an emotional day. And, you know, while we're on this, because we're talking about emotional things, you know, I shaved my head on the show.
Yes, you did.
Back in April for a young dad, Ryan Oaf, to support him. We were trying to show how we can be compassionate.
You are so brave.
Well, no, not at all. Because this amazing young man who called me after the program and said how much it meant to him. And
how is the dad doing?
Well, I hear that the family, they're plugging along, but that it's been a struggle recently, and that he's fighting some other challenges right now. And so for anybody who's of a praying mind, you know, our thoughts and our prayers are with Ryan and his family at this time. And
prayer is positive energy, right? It's non-denominational.
Prayer chain for Ryan Oaf and for his family, and we're hoping the best for them and keeping them in our hearts and minds.
Yes, and are we going to go to Mr. Clank here?
I think we need to. We've only got like a minute left, but you
There's a petition on change.org. I think that change.org is a wonderful thing. I've gotten a lot of petitions for them. This is for a service dog for a young boy with autism. He is not being allowed to go into school. Judy Kentner has started this petition. You can go to change.org. Mr. Clank is the dog's name. He is a golden retriever service dog that allows this child to function. The IEP team is not allowing this dog in the classroom. Why? Why? He's allowing this child to function better. He's a service dog. This needs to happen. Go to change.org. The opposition of Mr. Clank, show support. She's saying the dog mitigates a disability and enhances Jonah's educational experience. Let the dog in the school.
So it's something we can do that's free today. Go to change.org and
let Jonah get his dog.
Search opposition of Mr. Clank, and you can put your name on and help this mom. There may be a time later on when you need a petition signed, so let's support this mom.
Right. Doesn't cost a thing.
Child. Doesn't cost a thing. It's totally free.
Is Emily counting us down? Because I'm not hearing her.
I'm not hearing her either. But we've got 3 minutes. We have extra
we can talk more about Mr. Clank. You know, okay, let me go on a rant here. I don't get it. I don't get when a dog that is a service dog that helps a child function is not allowed in a schoolroom. I don't get it. Can somebody explain that one to me?
Because they like to think in straight lines and not think outside them, because it's that sort of thinking where if we allow this, what will be next? And you know, what would be next? Maybe we'll have educational experience.
Wheelchairs can't be allowed for people that can't walk, canes. I mean, really, this is a support system.
We covered about 2 weeks ago the story of a girl who has a dog that was going to preschool and went to start first grade at a school and was refused because the teacher happens to be horribly allergic to the dog. Okay, so we understand that. But
Get a dog that doesn't cause allergies. They have them. They do. I work with these organizations.
This dog is trained to this little girl, and the decision that they made was that this little girl couldn't come to the school then and had to go an hour away on a bus that the teacher could drive 5 minutes away. I don't know why the school district didn't think, let's move the teacher to the other school.
Hey, you know,
why can't we be logical about the way we,
you know, people are slow to change. And I have seen the miracles of these animals. I mean, we just had Susan on talking about the miraculous connection. We have funded Dogs for Children that literally could not function. There was a little girl, I heard this story, I'll never forget it. She clapped incessantly, that was her stem, till the skin on her hands was worn away. The dog was taught to put his nose into the clapping. The girl never slept. Her parents couldn't sleep. The dog stopped the stem. She got well enough where she could go to school. Her stem was prohibited by the dog. Miracles can happen. Let's be open to the power of what we can provide through love, through support, through compassion, through understanding.
Absolutely.
Let's not be so closed.
Absolutely. So sign the petition. Let's help Mr. Clank to be able to go to school.
I want that dog in that classroom.
I do too. I'm with you, girl. All right, we are out of time, but I want to remind everybody that the show will be back tomorrow. We will be on.
I'll be back next week.
And you'll be back next week.
With Vin
DeBona. I'm
Maybe we
very
can see some
excited
funny
about that.
animal videos.
Absolutely. I know they're getting some clips ready for us, and we're thrilled about that. You can continue to write in your questions and suggestions. And Nancy and I are going to be doing some fun stuff as the holidays come up. I have a bunch of free stuff to give away.
I love it.
So we're looking forward to that. We'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow. Nancy will be back next week. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye. Assemblyman Perez's office. Yeah, Paz. Wait a minute. She's Maria Paz. She worked with the assembly member that